Jacked Jew interview. All right, today I'm here with Josh Lader. Josh Lader is a cardiologist.
That's right, a cardiac electrophysiologist, a heart rhythm doctor.
That is pretty badass. So we're gonna work out, we're gonna do some cardio circuits, and we're gonna talk about the heart and try not to die. Come. Here you go, Josh.
Thank you.
So because he deals with the heart, we're gonna get his heart rate up. We're gonna start with this. You're gonna push all the way down, all the way back, and then I'm gonna talk to you.
Excellent.
Cool. Pushing through the legs, bring your shoulders forward, okay?
Okay.
Keep your core nice and tight.
Ready?
Yep. Let's check. Okay. So, how's your heart feel right now?
Feels pretty good.
Yeah, it's pumping, it's pumping?
Yeah.
What is electrophysiology?
So electrophysiology, if you think of the heart as being an electrical organ, so it's electrical impulses that power it. People develop problems with the wiring system, either short circuits or sometimes slow heart rhythms, and we kind of normalize them.
It's pretty hard to say all that when you're out of breath.
Yeah, it is.
Some blue collar work right there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get one more of these,
Okay.
and then we're gonna stop, okay?
Awesome.
What we're gonna do, core nice and tight, grabbing the ball, just slamming it on the floor.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Pretend like it's your worst patient. Okay. All right, let's go. 1, good, nice. Yep. 9, one more. Beautiful. How do you feel?
Feel pretty good.
Excellent. I'm always curious, like how people get into whatever field they're in. Like, so how does one get into this field of cardiology? It's a little morbid, no?
Well, I mean, actually, I kind of look at it from the other side. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to help people.
Okay.
I actually got into it from the science side.
Yeah.
I was studying cardiac electrophysiology in mice, which the science is pretty awesome and rapidly developing.
Are there a lot of mice with heart issues?
You can make a mouse have atrial fibrillation.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's so mean.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that there's a lot of mice going out to Mickey D's every night, just getting obese, having high blood pressure. They come to you with problems, but that's not the case.
That's not the case.
You make them have a heart attack.
We make them have atrial fibrillation, and then we make it so that they don't have atrial fibrillation.
Okay, so you're screwing them over, but then you're helping them.
That's exactly
That's
right.
okay. It's all for learning purposes.
For a good cause.
So atrial fibrillation is what? That's
So atrial fibrillation is the most common abnormal heart rhythm that there is.
Okay.
And what it is if you could think in normal rhythm, the top of the heart and the bottom of the heart are working together. When people have atrial fibrillation, the top of the heart is actually off on its own, trying to beat at 400 times a minute. So it's actually just quivering.
Yeah.
The bottom of the heart's beating, but the top of the heart's not. And that makes people feel unwell. And it also makes them 5 times more likely to have a stroke.
Sure. Okay. And what about a heart attack? I mean, is that like...
So a heart attack is more of like a plumbing problem. If you think of there are arteries that feed the heart, people can develop an acute blockage in those arteries, and that's a heart attack.
I see.
So I'm more of an electrician as opposed to the plumbers, the scent guys.
See, okay, good. 9, one more, Josh. Good. Catch your breath for a sec. Good. Remember that kid, Damar Hamlin, who was the football player?
Yeah.
So he got like tackled, and he just like did. Do you know what it was? Was they
so it's commodio cordis.
Okay. So what is that?
So the heart. It contracts because an electrical impulse tells it to contract. This is something that can happen to anybody, God forbid. So when the heart electrically activates, and that's what tells it to contract, there's a period of time that's got to elapse in order for it to be able to accept the next electrical impulse and contract again. And in that recovery period, it's an electrical recovery period, the heart is vulnerable. So if you were to stimulate it during that period, you could trigger a very evil heart rhythm in anybody. So if you...
So this is something he was born with?
No, this is a chance event that could happen to anybody.
Oh, wow.
It's just being hit at exactly the wrong place in the wrong time.
Wow. The fact that it doesn't happen that much in football means that it's that like...
It's
like a meteor hitting you. It's like a meteorite hitting you or something like that?
Something like that.
Right. So they had to defibrillate him, I think.
Correct.
I know that it was like a month later and he's back playing football.
Yeah.
So like, to me, that's amazing that you can have such an event like that, a cardiovascular event, and then be like up and, playing, football without any like permanent damage. It's kind of amazing.
It's a miracle. I think it speaks to the fact that that they're prepared, and in public places we have defibrillators, and we have people who know how to use them.
Right.
And that saved his life.
Aside from defibrillation, like when something like that happens, are there other things that they put into someone's body to prevent that from happening again, or is it more just like you go and you deal with the damage and then you're good to go?
So it depends on what are the chances of it happening again. For people who there's a high likelihood of recurrent The evil rhythm is ventricular fibrillation.
Yeah.
We have things called defibrillators.
Okay.
So what they used on him was an external defibrillator.
Yeah.
We all know from the movies with the paddles.
Right. Clear.
Exactly. Which we have things called implantable defibrillators.
Right.
So this is a device kind of like a special pacemaker, which lives inside your body and is like an insurance policy, which like any insurance policy you hope you never use.
Right.
But it's there to defibrillate you just in case.
Oh, cool. And how does it activate? Do you have to like pound someone's chest for it to activate, or?
No, it's constantly watching.
Okay. So as soon as something happens, then it'll self-defibrillate.
Exactly. There's a number of steps that it goes through. There's some less invasive things that you wouldn't feel that it does to try and terminate the evil rhythm.
I see.
And if those fail, it will shock you.
Because that'd be pretty mean if there was like a hidden button or something.
Yeah.
It's like, is it nipple?
Yeah, that's right.
Which nipple is it? That would be very bad. So
very fun.
more tight.
Okay.
Boom. Just slapping that down. Okay.
All right.
Let's
Ready?
do it. Yep.
Two.
1, 2, good. 3, shoulders back. 4, 5, 7, 8, 2. That's good. I feel like sports players, they should all be getting like these like health screenings before. I mean, I know they get like general screenings, like blood work.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your experience is with that, but my feeling is that a lot of these guys that are just like croaking on the field see if there's any like history of heart disease prior to them, getting involved in activity, because that might be a big factor in whether they're going to have an issue like that. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that, we see kind of the high profile cases. Everybody, no matter what your level of participation, should be seeing their doctor on a regular basis. And most risk can be kind of ascertained with a good history and a physical exam. Talking about family history, certain if the males in your family all drop dead, suddenly at age 45, you got to do a little bit more of a workup.
Right.
But I do think that if you're participating in high intensity sports at a high level, for example, at the college level, a lot of people should be getting electrocardiograms and echoes.
Yeah.
And this can actually risk stratify for certain conditions that, we all see the God forbid, the football player who's in their 20s dropped dead on the field.
Right.
A lot of the time that comes from something called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a thickened heart.
So what thickened heart? I'm trying to visualize because I don't have a heart in front of me. So.
Sure. Yeah. It's for some people with this very common genetic condition, the heart muscle can get thick, and that puts you at risk for certain evil heart rhythms that can cause you to drop dead suddenly.
Those are evil.
Yeah, this is evil.
Pretty evil.
Yeah. And these days we can identify these people and through screening and a good history and physical exam. And protect them. And it turns out that these days, people with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy live just as long as everybody else.
That's amazing. That's the thing is like for these kind of people, just to get that one screen, you could just save their life.
Exactly.
And so people are just walking around unchecked, just ticking time bombs.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's not the kind of excitement I want when I'm watching sports.
Definitely not.
All right, Doc, I'm sure you've done this before.
I haven't actually.
That is shocking. Okay.
Shocking. I like it.
There we go. See? Just a little medical humor here. We're going to row. So obviously, you're going to push through your feet, and then you're going to bring this bar back. Yeah. And then come close, bring everything in, and then legs first, then the bar. Good. 2. Good. And kind of get like you're dealing with pacemakers and all this technology, and what is on the cutting? What's coming up next?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's actually a lot of stuff, and it's the incredible thing when you think about the first implantable pacemaker was put in 1958.
58. Wow.
1958, and the battery lasted 8 hours. Unbelievable.
What did you do after that?
He had to go back to the OR for his second pacemaker.
Busy life, huh?
Yeah, what a bummer. So, but now we have pacemakers that are the size of a pencil eraser, that the whole device lives inside the heart. And it'll last you up to 17 years.
I'm sure a lot of people know this, but for people who don't, what does a pacemaker do? Exactly.
So a pacemaker, what it does is it protects you from slow heart rhythm. So it's not going to let your heart rate go below a certain number. So it's going to apply an electrical impulse to the heart muscle to make it beat. If your kind of natural pacemaker or your natural conduction system, the wiring system in the heart, is faulty.
How do you get to the place where that happens?
Well,
a lot of ways, I'm sure.
Some people are born with a faulty wiring system. Some people, it's just a matter of the wiring system kind of wearing out and stopping working, which is probably the more common thing.
What do you think is like the future? That's pretty damn cool, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
cool.
the idea that just from the 50s until now, and it's gotten smaller. But what do you think is like the future of that? Where we go from here? Is there anything like on the edge of, like on the horizon that
Sure.
that's coming up that you kind of have a little bit of a sneak peek that you can let people know about?
So right now we have a pacemaker that's the size of a pencil eraser that lives in the ventricle. We have a pacemaker that there's one that lives in the top of the heart in the atrium, and one that lives in the ventricle, and they talk to one another.
Whoa.
To kind of synchronize the beating of the atrium and the ventricle, which is important.
Yeah. Is it like in a nice, sexy, sweet voice, or is it, what are they saying?
Yeah, no,
What are they saying?
there's no.
Can you translate? It's like boom, 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 or is it,
It's something like that.
Okay, got it.
Right. In terms of ablation, there's kind of always ways to make. So ablation is a procedure we do to make it so that certain fast heart rhythms that cause people trouble don't come back.
Sure.
So we're constantly getting better and faster.
Yeah.
There's a new technology called pulsed field ablation, which is just, it's another way to deliver lesions to kind of get rid of troublesome heart tissue.
Wow.
Yeah.
What percentage of like all mortality do you think is like heart related?
So it's cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in the developed world. Actually, it causes more death than cancer. And I would say the good thing about that, because I'm an optimist, I think much of that is actually preventable, and preventable through eating well, lots of fruits and vegetables, and predominantly a plant-based diet, as well as exercise. I think you cannot.
I know nothing about that. What's this exercise you speak of?
That's right. Yeah. Exercise is there's nothing that can replace good diet and exercise.
So I drink like a lot of coffee. I get very jittery. Is coffee drinking associated with like heart disease or anything?
So that's a great question, actually.
Thank you.
Coffee, as we understand it now, is not actually associated with cardiovascular disease.
That's interesting. Because I always feel like I'm getting a heart attack. So
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's funny, back in the 80s when you were allowed to do such studies, they had a number of medical students lie down on an electrophysiology table, and they put wires into their heart, and they had them drink coffee.
Really?
And they measured various electrical properties, which did indeed change when you drank coffee. Turns out probably when you drink a fair amount of coffee, your body gets used to it. We call it tachyphylaxis. And it doesn't actually create long-lasting electrical changes. Probably most of the data are from large population-based studies. We don't really have what we call randomized trials, where you have a group of people who get coffee, a group of people who don't, and nobody knows who's who.
in those studies, when they gave the people coffee, were they just talking a lot? Because that's what happens when I drink coffee.
Yeah.
And they were just constantly interrupting. That's what happens when I drink coffee. Sorry, go ahead.
So if you look at large groups of people with population-based studies, actually coffee drinking is probably associated with a lower incidence of cardiovascular disease, which may be due to something called confounding. Perhaps people who drink coffee, there's something else that's a little bit different about them, perhaps socioeconomically or something like that. Maybe they're more likely to be working out. But coffee on its own is probably not associated with cardiovascular disease.
Are there changes in blood pressure that happen with what's the word I'm looking for?
We get used to.
You get used to it, and if it, like blood pressure is usually going up and down anyway. So
Exactly.
if for 4 hours out of the day you're high blood pressure, it's probably not, a serious health issue.
Yeah, our body gets used to the coffee and kind of affects us less.
I was just in the waiting room feeling like the worst pain in my head. I get migraines. I've been getting them since I was 12.
Sure.
And I just never had an EKG done while I was having a migraine. So it was interesting. I was less concerned and more interested in like, wow, what is this? Because I do notice when I have migraines, there's other physiological things that happen. You could have like things like in your hands. You could have like your speech could get a little weird for a second. You could feel like knocked out. So if those are happening, I don't see why it wouldn't affect other parts of your body.
There's a lot of areas where there need to be more research. We were working actually on spinal cord stimulators. So if you implant the wire into the thoracic spinal cord and you stimulate, and you can actually acutely change the electrical properties of the heart. And we were looking at that as a way to treat atrial fibrillation. And it's incredible. It seems like you probably could actually treat atrial fibrillation by doing that.
That's insane.
No humans wanted to sign up for the study, though. So.
Right, there's probably very few people. Oh my God. All right, Josh. That was awesome.
Ooh, this was definitely awesome.
You got it. So appreciate all that information. All right, learned a lot about the heart, and hopefully I won't have it broken anymore. Unlikely though. Thanks, man. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it, bud.